In today's video, I will show you how to implement table row actions to edit and delete specific rows using Tanstack React Table. Now let's implement the component for DataTableRowActions. So basically those three dots, because I want to be able to edit the bank account and delete the bank account. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to data table and create a new file. Our component will be named DataTableRowActions. So in here we can say const DataTableRowActions, and let's export default DataTableRowActions. This component will receive some props, so let's define the interface for it. So DataTableRowActions props. It will receive a current row, so the type will be row of tData, so the generic. Since we want to use the generic, we also need to provide the generics for the interface itself. And let's import the row from Tanstack React Table. The other prop will be onEdit. It will be a function which receives a value of type tData. So basically, in our case, it will receive the bank account value, and the return will be void. And we will have one more function onDelete, which basically also receives the value of tData and returns nothing. Let's destructure the props, and the props will be of type DataTableRowActions props of type tData. We also need to provide the generic for the component itself. So now we can say return, and we want to use the drop-down menu for the row actions. So let's do a drop-down menu from Shadcn. Let's import the component from the UI drop-down menu. Then we need a drop-down menu trigger. Let's import this one as well. Now we need the same icon, so more horizontal, with the class name of height4 and width 4. This will be imported from the Lucid React. And this icon also needs to be wrapped in a button, because we want to press this icon. So let's do button. The button variant will be host. And let's also give some class names. Alright, so now we can define the drop-down menu content. And we want a drop-down menu item. So drop-down menu item. The first one will be for the edit. Let's import the component. And on click, we will have a function which will call our past prop onEdit function, and we will pass the row.original, which means the bank account in our case. We can do the same for the onDelete. So let's copy and paste one more time. So this one will be delete, and let's call onDelete. And let's also divide them by the drop-down menu separator. So drop-down menu separator. Alright, so now we can use this component. So to do that, we can open our bank accounts columns once again. And we do have a cell for the actions. So we will do cell. It will be a function which receives a row. And we will render our data table row actions component. And we need to provide some props, so the row itself. Then we also need onEdit function. So onEdit equals onEdit, and onDelete, onDelete. Let's also import the component. Now we are missing the onEdit and onDelete, so let's move them right here. So it will receive props of onEdit and onDelete. So let's define the interface. So it will be bank accounts columns props. And let's define the interface itself. So interface, this one, and it needs to get onEdit, a function of bank account of type bank account, and return void. And the same for the onDelete. So onDelete. All right, so now we need to pass those functions from our component. So let's go ahead to our bank accounts index. And we of course get an error saying that we need to pass onEdit and onDelete. So let's define these two methods. So const onDelete will be use callback. We are using use callback hook to cache the function definitions so that it would stay the same across the re-renders. So it will receive a bank account. And just for now, let's only do alert and let's say onDelete pressed for bank account with bank account dot ID. And the dependency array will be empty. Let's also provide the type for this one, so it will be bank account. And let's do the same for the onEdit. onEdit. Let's update the text. So onEdit pressed for bank account with this ID. And let's pass those two functions to this one. So we need to pass an object of these two functions. So onEdit and onDelete. All right, so we can check if it's working. Okay, so we have my second test account. Let's click that. We can see edit and delete actions, row actions. If I press edit, the alert is being called, and the same goes for the delete. So that is working, but as you can see, the styling is a bit off. So let's fix that. And to do that, we can open our bank accounts column definitions. We can give hard-coded size for this cell. So let's say 50. And then we also need some changes to the data table itself. Let's define one constant, and it will be const default React table column width. And the default value in the React table is 150, so let's do that. And now let's apply some styles for the table header. So let's say const styles. And the styles will be of type CSS properties. And now we can do header.getSize. And if that size is not equal to the default React column width, oh, I have a mistype, so let's fix that quickly. So we are taking the size of a header, and if it's not equal to the default one, then let's say it will be width. And let's take that width from the header get size. And it will be pixels. Otherwise, it will be just an empty object. So now we can assign this style to the table head. And as you can see, now the styling is all right. We have a fixed width the last cell, and the other ones are without a specific width. Okay, so now the last part is to actually implement these onDelete and onEdit functions. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's start from the database layer. It means like the repositories. So let's go to the source, server, repositories, bank account repository. And now in here we need two methods, one for updating and another one for deleting by ID. So let's start from the deletion. So export const delete by ID. It will accept an ID of type number and an user ID of type string. Now we can do return Prisma dot bank account dot delete, and we want to delete where the ID is ID and the user ID is user ID. So this will delete a bank account by its ID and user ID. And we need one more function for updating, so export const update. It will be an async, it will accept ID as a number, and bank account of type create bank account DTO. So in the update function we can say const update bank account equals await prisma dot bank account dot update, and we need to provide an object with the data, which will be spreaded bank account, and we will update the balance. We'll use the sense function, and we will take bank account dot balance. And we also need to provide the where clause, and the where will be where the ID is ID. Finally, we can say return, transform bank account, and pass the update bank account. All right, we have our repositories methods done. So now we can go to our service layer, bank account service. And in here we again need two more methods. So let's say export const update bank account. It will be a async function with the parameter of ID with number and bank account of type create bank account DTO. And it will return a promise of bank account. So in here we can say const data, and let's call the API. So await API dot put. We will use put method for updating. And now we need to provide the URL. So let's give the URL and /ID. And let's pass also the update bank account DTO. Oh, it's just a bank account. And we can return the data. And we need one more function for the delete. So export const delete bank account. Async function with the parameter of ID. And let's say return API.delete. And let's copy the URL. Okay, so we created the repository functions for the communication with the database. We have our service methods for the API calls. And now we need to create the API handler itself. So let's go to source, pages, API, bank accounts, and currently we have a general index, but now we need a separate one for the bank account by ID. So we need to create a new file, which will have an ID in brackets. So in here we can say const bank account handler, or maybe we can even copy majority from the index, because it will be called the same. So the methods will be a bit different ones. So we will need case for a put, which will be handling the update case. So in the update, we can say const bank account equals create bank account ZOD, parse request body. Then we need to call the repository. So let's say const updated equals await update. And we need to pass the ID and the bank account. And we can return, so response.status http status code dot okay, so it means 200, and let's provide the JSON updated. And we need, of course, a break statement. As you can see, we are missing the bank account ID from the URL, the one which we are passing from the service, like this one. So we can remove this one. And to get the ID, we can say const. We need a query. Query we can get from the request. So let's take query. And from the query, we can extract the ID. And let's rename to something like ID string. If there is no ID string, then we say response status http status code bad request, which is 400. And we also need to say end return. So if the past query string with the ID was correct, then we can parse it to the number. So let's say const ID equals parse int ID string as string, and let's give a radix of 10. All right, so we already have the ID, so the put method is done. Now we need the case for the delete, so delete. And in here we only need to do await delete by ID. We can import it from the repository, and we need to provide the ID and user ID. Let's say response status http status request status code OK, and the break statement. Let's modify this one. So here we allow the delete and put requests. What else? We can review the imports. So this one is not needed, this one is not needed, and we can format the code. Okay, so we do have our bank account handler for a particular ID. Now we can go to our bank accounts page. So source, bank accounts, and index. All right, so let's start with the onDelete. So we need to define the delete mutation using React query. So let's say const delete mutation equals use mutation, and we need to provide some options. So the mutation function will be our delete bank account, which is imported from, let's see, from the service. So like this one, which calls the API. Let's go back. Okay, so our mutation function is delete bank account. On success, we want to invalidate the cache, because right now we are fetching the bank accounts with the use query hook, which uses this query key. And after the deletion, we need to say invalidate this cache and refetch the data so that the deleted bank account would disappear from the page. We can do that by using query client, so we can import it by this one. So let's say const query client equals use query client. We can import it from the React query Tanstack. So on success, we can say query client dot invalidate queries, and we need to pass the query key. So the query key will be this one. So let's copy, and we can also do the await because it returns the promise. So let's make this on success and async function, and let's format the code. All right, so now we can modify our onDelete function. So let's remove the alert. And let's say in here we want to say delete bank account mutation dot mutate, and we need to pass the bank account ID. So let's say bank account dot ID. Additionally, we can pass some onSuccess and onError handlers. So let's say onSuccess. And onSuccess, I would like to show the toast. So we need to import the toast. So here we can say const toast, and we can import that from the useToast hook. Not import, but get it from the useToast hook. All right, so now onSuccess, we can say toast, and let's pass some parameters. So the description will be bank account was deleted successfully, and then on error we can pass a function again, and let's show once again a toast. This time the toast will be an error toast, so variant destructive. Title will be something went wrong, and the description, there was a problem with your request. Okay, let's format the code. Oh, I have a mistype. Okay, so we can test our deletion if it works. So let's press delete. And as you can see, bank account was deleted successfully and it disappeared from the list. Now let's implement the onEdit. And for the onEdit, we will have a little bit more work, because basically on the onEdit click, we want to open up the bank accounts form in the modal, which will be able to handle both creating new bank accounts and updating the existing ones. So first, what we need to do is to lift some state up. Currently, bank accounts form has a state of is dialog open, so we will move that a bit up to the page itself. So let's have it here. And we will also need a new state for a selected bank account. So let's say selected bank account, set selected bank account, and let's say use state. The type will be bank account or null, and the default value will be null as well. So now on edit we can say set selected bank account and set this bank account as currently selected. And we also want to say that set is dialog open should be true. Alright, so we need to update the props for the bank accounts form. Okay, so let's define the interface. So bank accounts form props. And the props will be is open of type boolean, on open change function, which will receive a value of type boolean and will return void, and it will have bank account of type bank account or null. Basically it will store the currently selected bank account. So let's take those props from here. Let's define the type, bank accounts form props. Let's take is open, on open change, and bank account. So now we can pass the props. So let's pass is open, is dialog open. Then we want to pass the currently selected bank account. So bank account is selected bank account. And the last thing is on open change function, which will receive a prop, and we will set is dialog open value, and if the value is false, meaning if the dialog is closed, then we want to reset the selected bank account. So set selected bank account equals null. Let's jump back to the bank accounts form. So here we need to make some changes. So let's move this onSuccess to its separate function. So let's say onCreateSuccess, and let's define the onCreateSuccess function. So we no longer have setIsDialog open. Now it's called onOpenChange. We will deal with this one, new bank account, and this question mark a little bit later. I will show you where's the problem and how to fix it. Let's move the onError as well to a separate function. So let's say onRequestError, and let's define this function onRequestError. So now let's define the onUpdate mutation. So const update mutation equals use mutation. Let's provide some options. Firstly, we need the mutation function. And on mutation function, we need to call our service. So update bank account. And here we need to provide the ID of the bank account and the bank account create DTO. So we can get the ID and the DTO from here. So it will be create bank account DTO. And as you can see, the create bank account DTO, it does not have the ID in itself. Therefore, we will hack a bit with the types. We will say the type will be create bank account DTO, and also it will have an ID of number. And then we can take the ID and the DTO. So let's pass those in here, ID, DTO. Then we need onSuccess, and it will be onUpdateSuccess function, which we'll define in a second, and onError, we want to display the same onRequestError toaster, which is defined right here. Okay, so let's define the onUpdateSuccess. So const onUpdateSuccess. It will receive the updated bank account of type bank account. And in here we basically want to do almost the same. We want to show a toaster. Just instead of added, we will say bank account was updated successfully. And we will close the dialog. And again, I have a mistype right here and right here. Now we can update our onSubmit. So on submit, what we want to do, we want to check whether or not it's a creation mode or update mode. So that we can check by checking if the bank account is defined. If it's empty, then it will be the creation. So otherwise, it means it's an update. So we can say update mutation dot mutate, and we need to pass the create DTO. And we need to pass a bank account ID. Because as you can see, the create bank account DTO only has account number and the balance. And we get the bank account ID from this one. And it needs to be a single object. And of course, it needs to be called an ID. All right, let's fix the form here. So this one will be simply is open. And on open change, we need to say on open change. So let's just delete this one and straight away call the on open change. Additionally, we want to update the text, this one which says create bank account. So we want to check if bank account is passed. If it's passed, then it's update the bank account, and if it's not, then it's create new bank account. The last part is our use effect hook, which is for setting the form. So let's update the dependency is open. And we also need one more dependency, bank account. So in here we will say if bank account, meaning it's an edit mode. So we'll say form.reset. And we want to set the form values from the past bank account. So let's say account number, and we take account number from the bank account dot account number, and the same for the balance. So balance bank account dot balance, and I think we need to do to string. And on else means that it's a creation mode, so we just reset the whole form. Okay, I think we made all the main changes we needed. So now we can test this out, and I will show you what we are missing. So let's update the application. Let's try to add a new bank account. Let's say that account number will be some random strings and the balance as well. Let's press confirm. And as you can see, bank account was added successfully, but we cannot see it in the list. And if I would refresh the page, then it appears. So here is this problem which we need to solve. And we can solve that by using something called optimistic updates. For that we will need a query client. So let's say const query client equals use query client. Let's import this hook. So now on create success, what we can do is can say await query client dot set query data. This basically allows you to set some data to the React query cache so that you would not need to invalidate the cache and refetch the data. It's called an optimistic update. So we need to provide the query key. So query keys dot fetch bank accounts all, and it will be a function which will receive the old data of type bank account. It will be an array. So in the function itself, we can check if all data is defined, meaning we already have some bank account saved. So in that case, we can return a new array, and we need to insert the new bank account at the very beginning as the first element, and then we just set old data at the end. And if all data was not defined, meaning the user did not have any bank accounts yet, in that case we can return just an array consisting of a new bank account. And since we used the await, we need to define this function as an async. So let's try once again to create new bank account. Let's press add. Let's say and some random balance. Confirm, and as you can see, it appeared in the list. Now, if we would try to edit, as you can see, the form was successfully filled with all the data, and the title as well says update bank account. But if I would try to change it and confirm it, it says that bank account was updated successfully, but we can see only the old data, and after the refresh, the data is updated. So basically the same problem, which we can solve very similarly. So let's go to our onUpdate success. And in here we will say await query client dot set query data, or we can even just copy this stuff. And let's update the naming. So it will be updated bank account. It will be an async function. So if there was no old data, we just return the updated bank account as a single array element. But if it was, we need to not insert it in the very beginning of the array, but we need to find it in the old data array and update the object. So that we can do like old data dot map. The map will be account. And we can say bank account.id if it's equal to updated bank account.id, meaning that this is the bank account which we updated, then replace it with the updated bank account. Otherwise, just return the old bank account. Okay, so basically on update success, we are mapping the old data. We find the bank account which we updated and replace it with a new object. Let's test this out. So let's update this one. Let's change the account number. Let's change the balance. Confirm. Bank account was updated successfully. Account number is the new one and the balance as well is updated. So here we have it. We can create a new bank account. We can delete it. And we can update the old ones. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you like this video and see you on the next one.